And another concept that I love that you talk about is women getting stuck on their highest setting.
Yeah.
The way you describe it is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a depiction of the ick here where she's just got the phone looking at this guy and everyone else looks like that. Yeah, getting stuck on the highest setting is, because of the access to men that they have through technology and the attention that they're getting, which like women are kind of getting their reptile brains stretched out by all the attention. They all think that they're. I've just met so many girls who I used to know someone who she hung out with me all the time. We were not dating, and people thought we were dating. And she said to me one day, she made a face like this, and she was like, "Why do people think we're dating?" And I said, "Oh, because we look like we're dating." And she was like, "Really, you and me?" And I said, "Which one of us do you think is the more attractive?" And she went, "Me." And I said, "Oh, okay. What do you think you are?" And she said, "Oh, a 9. Like I think I'm a 9." And it just wasn't even close. Like I wouldn't have looked twice at her. She's an okay looking girl. There's nothing wrong with her, but she was getting so much of this that she thought that she was a movie star. And they feel that way about themselves, and then they actually get an opportunity because all these men will have short-term relationships with all these women. They get the opportunity, and in her mind, she thinks, I almost got married, which is the delusion. That's what I'm talking about, the standard female delusion chart. The delusion is this guy almost proposed to me. And then they consider all the rest of the men, beneath them. So getting stuck on the highest setting, viewing every other man in the world like this, it's based on these experiences that they're having, not only just viewing these men on their phones, but also getting to meet them and have actual experiences with them. Like not everyone is going to be Drake. I'm not all that familiar with Drake, but I know he's a rich and famous guy, and that's not an experience that can be replicated by
he's
John
the top
Average.
of the hypergamy of the social media hypergamy chart. Drake.
Sure, yeah.
Chris,
So he's up
Chris
there.
Hemsworth, what's the guys? Jason Momoa and Drake. That's the top of the hypergamy chart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I know. I know Jason Momoa. So I got it. So yeah. So I don't know how we're going to be able to do it because we're going to have to fundamentally change how technology works. But if we keep allowing this to take place and we don't find a way to move back towards this, then a huge portion of men are going to be disenfranchised and they're not going to be motivated to do anything. And then society's going to rot out.
Yeah, and specifically when you talk society rotting out, there are numerous studies that show that in polygynous societies, you have a higher likelihood for violence. So this is places like where men can have multiple wives, and you'll see this in places like India or Afghanistan. When that happens, you have a large group of men that have no a chance at the bottom. They have no chance financially or relationship wise. And then this is when you see individuals strap bombs to themselves, like or shoot up locations. That's where this kind of thing happens. So you see more violence in polygynous situations when there's encouraged monogamy. Like again, that's what the Protestant Reformation was: encouraged monogamy through Catholicism and those kind of things. What you find is that even the men in the lowest quartile of men, they were still in arranged marriages. They had one sexual partner that allowed them to have children and offspring, which put them in again, children, offspring, a farm, and cattle to take care of. I'm far less likely to be violent and to commit a revolution. And so we have safer society. These are massive generalizations, but that's in general what you're talking about with a disgruntled group of men down there at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. And if we do that, if we have some kind of social, force that encourages, or I mean, requires is a strong word. But if you have some kind of social force that makes us closer to this, where people match up 1-to-1, or at least somewhere in between this, the full-blown hypergamy and this, you've got to keep a certain percentage of men motivated and happy, and every day it's less and less. And I think, you said it's a huge generalization, but I think it's a strong generalization.
Yeah.
I think it's a very commonly self-replicating generalization that the more, like the higher these lines go, the more they point towards the top, the more these guys check out and start burning things down. There's one of those old proverbs that's, one of those apocryphal proverbs that the child who doesn't feel the warmth of the village will burn it down to feel its warmth or something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly.
So
I mean, and
it's like,
we see
yeah,
numerous examples of that, especially in countries like I said before, where bigamy is allowed, where men can
yeah,
take multiple wives. You're going to have men that, like, say, grow up in India, and their only possibility of having any sexual intercourse is probably with a prostitute. I've talked to men in these situations. There's just, because of the caste system there, there's a group of men that are completely left out. Can we go back to the hypergamy chart real quick? I want to point out one other thing that Mackin said when he was blaming the men. Look at the chart over there on the right. He was blaming those men at the top. Do you remember that? He goes, the reason why hypergamy exists because of those men.
because they cheat.
Because they cheat. Now, let's go to what the actual numbers say. In an unfamiliar scenario, which that's determining in dating apps, 80% of men are deemed to be unattractive or below average attractiveness. 20% of men are deemed to be attractive, but 4.5% of men, which is outside of one standard deviation. Remember, two standard deviations is 95.5%. So outside of that 4.5% are deemed to be so attractive that women will pursue them. And yes, I do blame those men. So what I'm blaming is 4.5% of men and 80% of women.
Yeah.
That's where I had an issue. Yes. Do I want to can you blame men for this? Of course. But can you, but again, the problem with when you want to blame men for that, you're blaming 4.5% of men. That's exactly right. Is it true that 4.5% of men are doing this? For sure. I have several friends. There's one girl I know. She went on tour with Machine Gun Kelly, and she said after every Machine Gun Kelly, again, this is anecdotal. This is just one story, but after every show, Machine Gun Kelly would then go have sex with like 30 girls. They'd have an orgy afterwards. They get all the groupie back there. She said she would have sex with the girls. This girl told me she had caught chlamydia several times from doing this. It was just Machine Gun Kelly and a bunch of these women. He would do it over and over again. She finally left the group, by the way, when her birthday came, and he didn't even know her birthday. That's when she finally like up and left. But she tells me this story, and then so Machine Gun Kelly, let's just say he's been with 1,000 or 2,000 women. He still gets chosen by Megan Fox. I think that's an important thing, because we're going to talk about promiscuity and men promiscuity and women and the way it's viewed. But going back to what I'm saying before, there's these men at the top that can do this. And what my point is, and what you've said before, is every one of these women, there's probably several women that have been to orgies with Machine Gun Kelly and tell their friends they dated him, quote unquote, dated him. And then now they're stuck at their highest setting. So do I blame men? I will blame 4.5% of men, but I will blame a much greater portion of women for the hypergamy chart than I do men. And actually, to be fair, I don't blame either one of them, because I think it's a function of evolution.
It is a function of evolution. And I am just going by what women told me. I have been told that at my peak that I was, a lot of women said 8. I drew a picture of myself back then. When I was here, I took advantage of it. And I just thought that I thought everyone was doing this. I thought everyone was sleeping with everyone, because that's just like the age that we live in, and it really just wasn't true. I was getting with few women up here and loads of women in this area, and I went crazy with it. I was in a much lower station earlier in life, and when I made it up here, I took full advantage of it. And now looking back at it, it's like, oh, I probably there were girls who would text me a year and a half after I saw them and say that they still thought of me. And that was me leaving her on her highest setting. So I participated in that, and I don't feel good about it. And I'm trying to tell men, even if you can, maybe don't. Maybe it's not good for you.
Sure.
Maybe don't put women here, even if you have the option to. I know that they're going to anyway, because it's like an irresistible thing that's built into us. But maybe some people will listen to me and reduce it, and just wait for somebody who wants to be here and puts him in one of these upper areas.